Hello, Endeavor here. Politics has been the main focus of my channel for the 3 years I've been on YouTube, but in the past year, I've become increasingly interested in cultural commentary. While we need to take on the pressing issues that we face in the world, I believe that culture is equally as important because, ultimately, we need to build a new culture for our people to replace the rotten anti-culture which the zeitgeist has given us. This is something we've known for a long time. We need an alternative right-wing culture, but that's easier said than done. We certainly don't have the resources to match the poisonous output of woke capital. While we do need to create new cultural works of our own, even if it is on a small scale, there is an endless amount of existing material out there with positive messages which we can claim as our own. My favorite cultural medium is film. Despite the fact that it's a medium which has been controlled by our enemies for almost all of its existence, and Hollywood has been one of the major driving forces of cultural rot, it's still one which does deliver from time to time truly enjoyable experiences. In the past year, I've particularly enjoyed looking back at what is called the golden age of Hollywood, the 1920s to the 1960s. The era that film first became normalized as a medium. Now, even back then, harmful propaganda was being pushed out by Hollywood, and believe me, it was there. But it was nowhere nearly as bad as it has been since then. And for all the bad messages, there was a good balance of healthy messages. For this video, I want to look at a relatively unknown movie from the golden age, which I saw recently. I thoroughly enjoyed the film and thought it had some really interesting insight on the modern world. The movie is called Escape by Night, a crime drama released in 1937. Escape by Night was what was called a B-movie. The term B-movie is still in use today to refer to low-budget, non-art house films, but it originated in the 1930s to refer to the second film of a double feature. It was commonplace in the 30s for two films to be played back-to-back in what was known as a double feature. The first film, which was called the A-movie, was the main attraction. A-movies had bigger budgets, more famous actors, and were generally longer. B-movies were the second films shown in double features. They were low budget, less publicized, and usually not much more than an hour long. Escape by Night was one such film. It was made by a now-defunct film studio called Republic Pictures, which specialized in B-movies. And it's not a well-known film for the era. The Wikipedia entry for it only has 3 sentences, and its runtime is only 1 hour long. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed this movie and I thought it had a lot of healthy and positive messages which I want to share. As I said, we want to build a culture of our own and there's plenty of stuff out there that we can claim as ours. I want to do that for Escape by Night. I want to claim it as ours. And you can watch it for free on YouTube. I'll give you a link to it down below. The plot of the film is that there's a man who finds himself caught up in a conflict between rival gangs in Los Angeles. He steps in to defend a woman he witnesses being attacked on the street, only to find out that she's a member of a city gang and the men who attacked her were members of a rival gang. He's forced to take refuge at her gang's hideout, but gets himself into even deeper trouble when the hideout is attacked by the police. He's forced to flee Los Angeles along with the female gangster and 2 other male members of the gang. The 4 flee to rural California, wanted by the police for accessory to a murder committed by another member of their gang who remained in the city. They find themselves low on supplies and constantly on edge with the police searching for them. They then come across a farmhouse where an old blind man lives with his daughter. The blind man offers them lodging in his home, not knowing of their wanted status. They accept, planning to stay until the heat from law enforcement is off. The blind man's daughter had been lying to him about the state of their farm. He's under the impression that it's productive, but in reality it's barren. While hiding out there, the 4 fugitives begin to work on the farm, growing crops, raising livestock, and repairing the premises. At first, they're sour about their situation, but the gangsters grow to love their lives on the farm. They decide to quit their lives of crime altogether and go straight. But their former gang members find them and demand that they return to their gang in Los Angeles. And they have to struggle against their former gang and the authorities to keep their newfound lives on the farm. So that's an overview of the plot. Ultimately, it's a film about good and evil. I'd like to look at several themes in the movie and how they contrast the two. The obvious contrast is between the criminal life and the law-abiding. They leave behind the life of crime to live a law-abiding life. Clearly a moral choice, but the bulk of the movie takes place on the farm, and there's plenty of more subtle themes which I think say a lot about what makes a good and just life. One is the contrast between the settings, the urban versus the rural. A common Hollywood trope is the vilification of rural communities in favor of urban cosmopolitanism. You just need to look at how any Hollywood movie presents the southern United States. It's typical for Hollywood to present rural America as bigoted, uneducated, superstitious, and backwards. But Escape by Night reverses this trope. And one of the ways that it does that is through the setting itself. One of the major causes of discontent in modern cities is the absence of nature. Being constantly surrounded by man-made structures is just downright depressing. Spending time in nature is good for the soul. In the film, it was the urban environment in which the characters lived an amoral life of crime, while it was the rural environment that drew them towards the good. The land itself of rural California in the 30s is enchanting. The fields of the farm, the hills, the rivers. The ever-presence of nature in contrast to the bustling city allures the characters away from urban life to that on the farm. And there's several other contrasting themes that play out in the film based on characteristics endemic to rural life versus that of the city. Another is the atomized individual versus the community. Despite millions of people living together in one small geographic area, cities tend to make people lonelier than ever. People are evolved to live in small villages where they know each other. But in cities, there's so many people that everyone is anonymous. This is what makes people atomized. Escape by Night shows this. Though the characters were members of a gang, it didn't provide them any meaningful communion with one another. At the beginning of the movie, just as they flee the city, their attitudes towards each other are antagonistic, because gang life is individualistic. Their participation in the gang was solely predicated on their own benefit as individuals. But as they start to live and work together on the farm, they start to form communal bonds with each other, the family they moved in with, and locals in the nearby town. I really enjoyed the scenes of them all sitting down at the farmhouse dinner table, because you get a real sense of the togetherness that their new community has given them. Their new rural life on the farm brings them together in a way that gang life in the city never could. And this leads into another contrasting theme of the film, the modern versus the traditional. Modernity only places value on that which can be quantified. It judges the world by numbers on a graph and is completely disconnected from any higher form of spirituality. The urban life the former gang members lived was entirely in pursuit of the material. They were gangsters because it was their pathway to wealth. They're less materially wealthy living on the farm, but their lives are more fulfilling. In the city, the gang were atheists, but the old blind man on the farm was Christian. Before the first dinner that they eat at the farmhouse, the old man says a prayer before they eat, something which was alien to the fugitives. While the secular, materialistic lifestyle left the gangsters always wanting more, the religious blind man was thankful for that which he had been given. He was less materially wealthy, but more satisfied with what he had nonetheless. Another component of the traditional life, in contrast to the modern, is the emphasis on the family. A farm is inherently family-oriented. It's maintained by a family and passed on from one generation to the next. The old man relies on his daughter to build a family of her own and take up responsibility for the farm now that he can't anymore. There's also a conflict between the female gangster and the former leader of the gang. She was his lover and he provided her with plenty of material wealth, but their relationship was hollow. She leaves him for a business owner in the nearby town, because rather than just riches, he offers her a commitment to building a family and a communal life. Lastly, the movie presents the theme of labor and how it can be a means of fulfillment. Another one of the causes of alienation in modern life is that work is not fulfilling. In modern cities, most people work some office job, over the internet, or some kind of customer service. One of the problems is the sedentary lifestyle that this creates. While manual labor has not always been a pleasant experience throughout history, the complete lack of physicality in modern work is bad for both the body and the mind. But the problem of lack of satisfaction derived from work is deeper than that. It extends back to the Industrial Revolution. The problem is not reaping any tangible reward for one's own work beyond money. There's no sense of building something of your own. In the movie Escape by Night, the characters find fulfillment in work on the farm that they weren't able to in gang life. When they first arrive there, the farm is in disarray. It's unproductive because there's no one to work the fields, but they begin to work on the farm, not having anything else to do while hiding from the police, to find that the work is actually quite rewarding. One of the characters says his passion was cooking, but he joined the gang because it was just more profitable. On the farm, he becomes the cook for the family and begins to grow his own vegetables in the garden. Another gangster begins to raise chickens, while another one plows the fields and repairs the facilities. When their former gang finds them at the farm and tells them they need to return to Los Angeles, they don't want to go. They find working on the farm fulfilling because they're building something of their own. Escape by Night might have been a relatively minor B-movie crime drama when it was made in the 30s, but it really does have some valuable insight into the modern world. It's a film about what makes an authentic, fulfilling life. That the direction and purpose found in rural traditional life can lead one away from evil and towards the good. Overall, it's a really uplifting and feel-good movie from the golden age, which also preaches some really healthy values. And that's something that's really hard to find in modern Hollywood. Like I said at the beginning, we want a culture of our own, so why not claim the art that's already out there? If you want to watch Escape by Night, it's only an hour long, and I'll provide you a link to it down below. If you're ever feeling down on a rainy afternoon and you're looking for something to watch, it would be a good choice. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter or Telegram, and if you'd like to support my work with a donation, you can do that too. Thank you for listening. Till next time, Endeavor.